Oh! Wow, who's up early? Did anyone watch Nick Rekieta's comeback stream? Whatever happened with it? Is it all resolved? Is he still addicted to drugs? I don't know if he was ever like addicted to drugs. I think his issue was alcohol, I think. To be fair, I actually don't know that. I'm just assuming based on how I was looking. And the fact that he was getting wasted on stream. A lot. Like 3 years probation? Well, that's not bad. All considered, I think, right?
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So, how old did you say you were?
I'm 30 years old.
Your profile says you worked at Bananazon?
Yeah, I've been there for the past 8 years doing, like senior software engineering, so, you know, like coding.
Really?
Look, I know I look a little young for my age, but I promise you, I'm 30 years old.
Okay, well, maybe you are just way older than you look.
I saw on your profile that you're like into art.
Yeah, I've been really into illustrations by Nara. I didn't expect you to be an art guy. Oh man.
Here's your glass of rosé. And
Thank you.
Sorry, we couldn't verify your ID.
Oh.
So
What?
here's a grape juice for you.
Oh, wait, I'm pretty sure there's a mistake.
I think you're way too young for me, so I'm gonna have to go.
Wait. Okay, look, listen, I know I lied about my age. I'm sorry. But the second I saw your profile, I the painting with the tulips.
What is it supposed to be about?
You're the most gorgeous girl ever, and you're such an unbelievably talented artist. Do you think
Simpler.
you can just give me like one chance to show you I can make this work?
Yikes.
Can you give me some time to think about it? Are you free sometime next week?
No.
Ooh, actually, next week I have this anime convention I gotta go to with my boys. Do you think you could do like next month, maybe?
Oh my god.
Oh, with the boys. Good job, Chief. I messaged you on Twitter. You said that Trump is afraid of impeachment. Why? Did he not get impeached twice during his second term? How did that affect him? So I don't like the way that we talk about impeachment, or like the vocabulary that we use to describe it. Just because I don't know, it seems so weird and hard for people to understand. So technically, impeachment is I would say, impeachment is two things, or there are two parts to make an impeachment happen. You get the House to say you're impeached, and then you get the Senate to say that you're impeached. But the way that we phrase this is we say that you are impeached in the House and then convicted in the Senate, is how we talk about it. So while Trump was impeached kind of twice, what actually happened was the House voted to impeach him, and then the Senate didn't vote to convict him. So it wasn't like a full impeachment. I don't know why we use the phrasing that we do to talk about impeachment, because it apparently just leads to absolutely nobody understanding what it means, or what it, like when you say somebody got impeached, what does that actually entail? But yeah. Who the fuck is Jeff? Oh, it's Jeff. Oh, never mind. Okay. I haven't seen that chat symbol in a long time. Invisible AI to cheat on everything. Cluely. Okay. If someone breaks in, which gun are you reaching for first? If they're fat, the shotgun. If there are multiple people, the rifle. If it's some guy with a revolver, then we grab our double barrel. And we have an old-fashioned gunslinger duke out. Have you seen the Willie Mack video? No, but he did interviews for that like 2 months ago, I think. Willie Mack's usually fair. Hopefully he was in this one. What am I looking for? Share. No. Chat? No. Participants. Copy link. I'm curious, did Dr. Israel write you a workout? No. He said you'd leak nudes for Israel? I mean, technically it was for the Mossad, but... Okay. I think I'm waiting for this guy to join. Any update on when the end of the legal shit is going to be? However long it takes. The wheels of justice grind slowly. I think right now they're trying to they want to file a preliminary injunction for some retarded reason. So I think we're waiting for them to file that, and then we do our motion to squash that, and then we just keep on trudging. How long do you think all the court stuff is done with? I don't know. A few more months? I think the schedule's posted on the docket or whatever. Only illegal shit from watching a stream. Doesn't a preliminary injunction mean they think they have overwhelming evidence at this stage that a judge can act on? No, preliminary injunction has to do with irreparable harm and it's kind of a showing on the merits. But the things that they want to ask for a PI are fucking stupid. So it's like a request for me to like take down videos from all of the internet. It's like I'm not even hosting these. This is fucking retarded. So, but you know, listen, if they want to have fun and you know, who am I to get in somebody's way of having a grand old time? Do impeachment stack like the ones from his first term? Would they affect the other reprimandations? No. How much do you think the legal stuff will cost you? By the end of the case, I'll probably wasted, I don't know. Probably a little around, if I had to guess, probably $50,000, $60,000. Good times. Hey, how's it going?
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Are you like playing something right now?
I have like a little game in the background, yeah. While I was waiting for you. Why? What's up?
Is it like it's like a tower defense thing, right?
No, it's Factorio. It's not a tower defense thing.
What's Factorio?
It's a long story, okay. It's like a, I don't even know how to explain it. What is your like gaming background, or what frame of reference are you coming from?
I basically am like really trepidatious about a lot of video games because I don't have very good self-control. So when I like a game, I start to like it too much and then I just let it chew away at all my time. So I only do games sort of when I like need to play it, or else I'm just gonna blow all my time.
Okay, this is probably something you wouldn't want to get anywhere near then. It's just like a designing optimization game, kind of like you make mine resources so you can build stuff to automate stuff, and then you just like iterate on that for however much of your life you want to waste, basically.
No, but you see, that's the problem, is that sounds way too good.
It is good. That's why I've got like over 1,000 hours in this game.
Jesus Christ. Is there like a fantasy version of that?
I mean, there are kind of other games in this genre that are kind of similar-ish, like games like, I don't know if you've ever heard of like RimWorld or Oxygen Not Included or Dwarf Fortress, like those types of games. But
RimWorld is a very audacious title.
well, it was made for a more innocent audience on the internet. Okay.
What game have you spent the most time doing on stream?
Oh man, I mean, technically, I used to be StarCraft 2 professional player, so probably that game, followed by maybe League of Legends, and then probably followed by the Factorio game. Also, you know I'm live, right? I sent that in the email, just so you know. Yeah.
Yeah, you did send that.
Okay, yeah, just making sure. I've had a couple convos that go on for like 15, 20 minutes, and the person's like, okay, I'm ready to start. And I'm like, okay, well, we've been shooting the whole time. So, yeah.
No, yeah, I am like keenly aware of game streaming stuff, but again, I just have this personality where if I get into content like that, I just don't know how to manage my time. Mm-hmm. So I had heard Destiny a trillion times. I'd heard everybody say Destiny. If somebody asked me on the street, who's Destiny? I'd be like, oh, Destiny. He's like one of the most popular streamers. And I think his hair is blue. But in general, I'm just so not online that it took me a minute to figure out like what everybody was doing.
Yeah. Is it even possible to do politics these days and to be not online?
That's sort of my goal, right? Because I'm a sort of progressive person. And I think that too many spokespeople for my values, at least, are so kind of spurious and fake and inauthentic that it's really hard to communicate to people who are getting red-pilled and who are otherwise just not interested in having political beliefs. Mm-hmm. Because so many of the young spokespeople who believe what I believe are just like fucking dorks. So I'm like, you know what? I'm a better messenger for my values if I don't get too into the weeds of certain things and if I remain a little bit unplugged.
Yeah, I actually think I super agree with that. You say dork. I think our online word for that is soy. But there's an issue where a lot of messaging on progressive stuff ends up just feeling very kind of like patronizing and condescending. And I think it was a big mistake that, or I don't know if it was a mistake or how this came about. But I think there's a lot of stuff related to, like, even saying this sounds stupid, but there's a lot of stuff related to diversity and everything that's cool, that's good. There are people that you can interact with that you haven't had before. For streamers, it's a bigger audience, you make more money. For diversity of like types of content or stuff you can enjoy, like all of this is good. But whenever progressives would talk about stuff like diversity, it feels like you're getting like scolded, like you're in trouble. Like there aren't enough black people and women here. What's wrong with you guys? You know, be more inclusive. And it felt like a punishment, like something you had to endure rather than something you could benefit from, which I think is a big problem. But yeah.
Totally. And it's like, it's very much an opportunity. Like if I was a business person and I was hiring a staff, I would want to hire a more diverse staff because it seems to me like a good business decision to have a variety of different perspectives in the office, right? To have people who understand different ways of life so I can get a more well-rounded view of how to go about certain things, right? So I see DEI in a positive light where it's like, yeah, not only are we making up for a huge lack of opportunities for people, we're also making a smarter and more well-rounded workplace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and that even on the DEI thing, it's funny because I argue with people over this and I ask them, like, when you hate DEI, are you against it? What's a policy that you don't like? Nobody even has any concept of what that means. Like, I think in a lot of people's minds, DEI is literally just taking the least qualified trans black female pilot you can and sticking them in an airplane and seeing how long they can fly until it crashes. And like that's the average conservative concept when it comes to anything related to affirmative action or DEI, which is very annoying too.
And it's like with woke, like what I always say about woke, I mean, I'm guilty of this because I use the word woke to describe shit sometimes, but when I'm saying woke, I'm using it in a derogatory way to describe the performance of an intent to do equitable things as opposed to actually putting your money where your mouth is. So when I call something woke, it's me saying that something is trying to appear woke, whereas other people will say woke to describe like a black person being put in a Disney movie. And it's like, okay, we're all freaking out about woke. Everybody's talking about woke and how Kamala Harris lost because woke and how woke is going too far. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, if you line 10 people up and ask them what woke means, you get 10 different answers. Yeah.
Yeah, conservatives are very good at attacking, even if no one knows what exactly they're attacking. They love their acronyms. What was it? We had DEI. We had CRT, critical race theory. We had ESG scores. Like, there's always like a new 3-letter acronym to be afraid of, I guess. So,
yeah, and that's kind of my whole messaging on stuff like that is like, are you falling for this distraction? You know, I was talking to Tommy Lahren, one of the Fox News kind of princesses of the past decade. And she was talking about the trans athlete stuff. And, you know, I'm not a gender scientist. I'm not an expert on any of these things. But the thing that I say to people is normally like, do you fucking care? Like, there are 15 trans people in the entire world, and 2 of them play sports, and 1 of them is good at sports. And you're making trans athletes the hill that you're going to fucking die on. Like, you got Gavin Newsom going out there talking to Republicans on his podcast about how the trans athletes thing has gone too far. And then Newsom goes so far as to say that Van Hollen fighting for Abrego Garcia's rights is a distraction from the real issue and how we should be focused on the real issues like what's happening to the economy and everything. It's like, bro, you're talking about trans athletes. That is the most fake issue in the entire world.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time over the past couple of years, I think, trying to figure out the media apparatus, because it feels like a feeling I've had for, man, I don't know, longer than the last 5 years. It feels like maybe since Trump came into office, maybe even before that, conservatives somehow always have a way to dictate the media agenda, even if it's not their media. Like, they always decide what we have to talk about all the time. And it's very fucking annoying, like how they can make some issues so sticky. Like that trans athlete issue is so sticky. And, you know, meanwhile, you know, we've got the 14th, you know, Yemen bombing plan being talked about yesterday on Signal, and nobody cares.
It's crazy also because, like, if you said 3 months ago, like, Trump's Secretary of Defense is going to be leaking war plans via Signal chat, you know, even moderate liberals would have been like, okay, watch your Trump derangement syndrome. It's not going to be that bad. Like, literally in January, if you said this Hegseth shit was going to happen, people would be like, don't be inflammatory. Don't be too intense. You know, we don't want to push things too far. Meanwhile, now it's happened again. He double tapped that shit. And it's like, no, it turns out some of the shit that even I was telling people was inflammatory that they were saying about Trump. No, not only is he going to do that, he's actually going to double down and take it even farther. And that speaks to this weird thing that people were saying during the election, which is like, actually, you know what? A second Trump might be more reserved. He might be more chill this time around. It's like, no, he's not.
Yeah, sorry. What? There's every time you talk, there's like a billion things that pop into my head because there's so much that's wrong right now with the current American political landscape, and it actually drives me it actually drives me beyond insane. You're pretty young, right? You're only like 24, I think.
24, yeah.
Sometimes we get lost. Okay, I don't know who you supported for candidates. Okay, I like the Bulwark and this whole like arena of the internet I discovered because it's like this kind of like more center left area which didn't exist on the internet for a long time, or it feels like it didn't. It was all like either tankies like very far left or all the crazy conservative worlds. Sometimes things happen. Have you ever heard the phrase Bernie math?
No, but I'm curious.
Basically, it came from the 2016 election cycle where it was Hillary and Bernie Sanders in the primaries. And people came up with this term called Bernie math to describe people that were explaining how Bernie Sanders could still win. He still had a path to the nomination, even though it was like hopelessly lost. And
I've seen the here's how blank can still win.
Yeah,
memes.
basically, yeah. That came from that was the Bernie math meme, basically. And what happened was after the dust settled, okay, after all the cards were on the table, you look back and you're like, okay. During the story, it's like, all right, well, Hillary was barely up here and Bernie kind of had an edge here. And what is, okay, and maybe this, but after everything's done and you look back, you're like, okay, Hillary is pulling ahead by quite a bit the entire time. And she won by quite a bit the entire time. Nothing was actually surprising or shocking here. And sometimes I feel like when you look at the Trump stuff, people are in this weird world where they're like, I don't think he's going to do this, and I don't know, we'll do that. I'm not sure. Like, he would never actually go through with like the tariffs. He would go through. It's like, okay, well, just look at what he said the entire time. This guy's been talking about the same shit for literally 4 years. Okay, you saw everything he wanted to do in the first term. Although conservatives will deny reality, and liberals are too scared to talk about it because they get labeled with TDS. All right, you had a guy who legitimately tried to overthrow the fucking election. It shouldn't be a surprise to you that he would do crazy shit like worldwide tariffs or try to install loyalists that would basically overthrow rule of law in this country. But he literally tried to stage a coup. So like, but people like can't see the reality of it. So then they're surprised because Trump had become this like empty vessel that everybody could insert whatever they wanted into him. Like the crypto guys are like, oh, he's going to be good for digital currencies and crypto. And Trump, I mean, we have the A1 steak sauce statements by our, what was it, the Department of Education secretary, where she was talking about AI. And she said A1 like 20 times. Have you seen this video? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, but that checks out.
Yeah, and it's just frustrating because a lot of the stuff that was said was obvious, and now a lot of it is coming true. And a lot of these people, these financial people sometimes, or these political pundits, are like, wow, I can't believe Trump would do all this. And it's like, why? Why can't you believe?
Yeah, it's just tough because at this point, it's hard to understand what people actually care about, right? Like 10 years ago, if you had told someone that somebody kind of enthusiastically encouraged a violent mob to overthrow the Capitol, you'd think that virtually every single Republican would be like, well, that person ought to go to prison. In Romney's America, somebody like Trump ends up behind bars and everybody really does something about it. But now it's like, no, it's kind of cool, I guess. And I think it just goes to show how fragile our democracy was and how much we kind of let a lot of its weaknesses slide. I think that we've also had such a reliance on the Supreme Court being an effective form of justice and an effective pillar to the strength of American democracy. And now it's like, no, the Supreme Court is kind of a little compromised as well. And it pains me to say that, but also I feel like it's easy to see how wonky and strange the Supreme Court system is if you're just explaining it to somebody who's never heard about it before. Like if you go to somebody who isn't from America and you say, yeah, so basically there's a bunch of people wearing cloaks, and the cloaked people get to decide everything and they get to be there for life, and whoever is conveniently president at the time gets to appoint that person for life. It sounds a little weird, doesn't it?
Listen, I'm a American cuck. I love our system. That being said, I appreciate the institution of the Supreme Court. I do think that there should be term limits, but that I don't think that has anything to do with how long they're there for or the life, position or anything. I don't like what you said, that it's like a random lottery of how many Supreme Court picks do you get. That's insanely unfair, in my opinion. So I don't know if it was like every 16 years or whatever, but people have or every 8 years or something, people have mathed out to where if you make it so you do a certain number of picks, whatever, every president gets like 1 or 2 Supreme Court justices. They would have to be like 2, I think. That would be way better than our current system where Donald Trump could foreseeably choose 5 or 6 by the end of his term, depending on who retires or who dies. That's wild.
But you see what I mean? Like Obama, if he had done what Trump did, Obama could have nominated a Supreme Court justice. Like Obama didn't do it out of respect for the rules. And then Trump said, hey, guess what? Fuck the rules. And he got another Supreme Court justice. So it's like,
well, Obama did have a guy that he nominated. It was McConnell who didn't ever want to bring him up for a hearing. McConnell basically just said, no, we're not going to do that because we're too close to an election. That was like a year away.
He's stepping down, right?
I honest to God, I don't follow that kind of stuff anymore because I keep hearing like I thought I heard Pelosi was stepping down like 4 years ago, and I feel like it never happened. So I don't know. Supposedly, I think McConnell is on the way out. Yes,
I think he's piecing out at this point. I think there's going to be this big group of conservative people who completely capitulated to MAGA, who retire soon and just try to wipe that away from their legacy. Like I think that within the next couple of years, you're going to see a bunch of conservatives who were totally in line with Trump, voted with Trump, supported him in the election and everything, but they try to write their book, write their tell-all or their memoir, and just sort of rewrite the story a little bit to be like, you know what, I actually wasn't as MAGA as I was in action. I think you're going to see a lot of that. I wouldn't be surprised if within 10 years, Marco Rubio has a book completely disavowing the Trump regime.
Yeah, that's probably the most challenging period of my life if I continue to do politics would be the 2028 season. Because if Trump is gone, all of these conservatives are going to backtrack. And you said something earlier that's actually been one of the most challenging things for me to figure out is what do people actually care about? At least on the conservative side, it has nothing to do with what they say. There is no world where a person really cares that much about the Hillary email stuff and doesn't give a fuck at all about the Signal chat leak. There is no world where somebody cares about any type of lawfare and supports Donald Trump writing executive orders targeting law firms. You can't, like, I just won't be able to take a conservative seriously on literally anything they complain about in 2028. You want to talk about missed goals or missed targets or running things like a business? Well, Elon Musk came in hot on $2 trillion worth of savings. Then it turned into $1 trillion. And then now we're down to, he said 150 billion, I think, at the faux cabinet meeting. And now I've heard another guy, who is it, Besant or somebody else said maybe 50 billion. And it's like, holy crap, we're like an order and a half of magnitude away from the original estimate. What the fuck happened here? And nobody cares. Nobody says anything. And we're going to have a bigger deficit than we had before. The debt's going to increase. So he's not even going to be good fiscally. He's not going to be good for for any part. Yeah.
Yeah, but people don't understand that stuff. Like, we just kind of have this collective understanding that we're always in a lot of debt.
Yeah.
And Republicans run on making the debt lower, and then they don't make the debt lower, and Democrats actually kind of do that. So it's really weird. I think conservatives are all about appearances, and they're all about what things look like in this very gilded way. And it's sort of the politics of people not reading any further into stuff. Conservatives run and they govern on the first layer of things, right? So they say, okay, we're going to cut costs. Don't ask what we're actually spending this money on. Don't ask why we're spending this money on cancer research and veteran benefits. We're going to cut costs, and it's good to cut costs. Whereas Democrats, they go more layers into these concepts. And that's why, someone like Bernie Sanders, while he's explaining in depth what he's going to do with the healthcare system, isn't going to be as effective a candidate as Joe Biden going up on the debate stage and being like, hey guys, I'm going to be nice. Remember when people were nice? I'm going to do that. I mean, the Bernie Biden debate, to me, showed what happens when you over-intellectualize certain things for voters. Bernie goes up and is just explaining how these systems work, and he's saying that if we do this, then this percentage is going to go down, so you're going to pay more for this, but less for that. And Biden's like, I'm a friendly guy. Boom, Biden wins. So conservatives, I think, do the very simple thing. They say, we're going to cut costs, we're going to strengthen the border. And Democrats tell you how they're going to do stuff. And voters don't want to pay attention for that long. Like if you explained Trump's agenda to people in 2024, it's like, okay, he's going to strengthen the border. strengthen the military, lower taxes. Like, you could explain his agenda in bullet points. Whereas when I was telling people why they should vote for Kamala Harris and what she was going to do in office, I ended up doing this fucking word salad that I barely understood myself. Like, it was either a 100 paragraph explanation or because she's better. I couldn't find anything in between that.
Yeah, have you ever played League of Legends?
No, I have not played League. I would be a League addict.
Oh, okay, good for you. Don't do that.
I know there's something called an AD carry, I believe.
Yeah. One of the frustrating things, so in League of Legends, your games last like 45 minutes, or they used to actually. Maybe the time varies, but people are very protective about their rank. So if you win or lose, you're going to lose points for your rank. People are like, they feel very strongly about that. And one of the worst feelings ever is when you queue a game, you get through champ select, you get into the game, and somebody on your team, it's called inting, it's short for intentional feeding, meaning the person just sacrifices his character over and over again into the enemy team. And it feels horrible because now all 4 other people are held hostage on the team. You have to waste, because you can't surrender until like 15 or 20 minutes. So you're wasting your time. This guy's just having a, grand time, feeding away and making fun of everybody in all chat. And then eventually you wait until the game is over and then you forfeit, you lose or whatever. And it's a waste of time and it sucks. It's like the worst feeling in the world. And one of the challenges that I get when I try to explain to people how annoying the current political climate is you have one party that wants to govern right now, like effectively control the country and do like actual policies. And then you have the Republicans, which are on this like wacky circus ride from hell. And it's like, I don't know how I'm supposed to treat you as a serious person when you pretend that you're, the owner of some company or financial analyst or whatever the fuck. And I'm trying to talk, you're like, well, I don't know if the $20,000 first time home credit from Kamala would have put upwards pressure on housing. Okay. You'll say that.
I'm sorry, real quick.
What?
Was that like a hint of a Ben Shapiro voice that I was hearing?
Ben Shapiro's not even the person I hate the most right now, although he's included in that.
I know, but when you start to talk like this a little bit, it's kind of evocative of one specific person.
We call that the straw man voice on my stream. I just make that voice when I'm making fun of somebody. So, but when these people will come around and they'll be so endlessly, needling or critical on all of these proposed Kamala policies, and it'll be like, how do you feel about like 80% tariffs on every single fucking country on the planet, including the Penguin Island? And they're like, well, we got to give them a little bit of flexibility. Well, maybe it'll bring back jobs. And it's like this endless charitability for Trump. And I'm like, are you fucking serious?
Meanwhile, Kamala sneezes in the wrong direction, and
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh my God, it's communism." Yeah,
I remember
that's the
watching
thing
on that. I remember watching Eric. I think it was Eric Weinstein or it was Brett, one of the two, and then Joe Rogan. And it was the start of their podcast, like right after the election. And Joe's like, "Man, I'm so glad that Trump won because if Kamala would have won, who knows what would have happened?" And it's like, what do you mean? Who knows what? Biden was just president for 4 years. Nothing fucking happened. What are you talking about? Nothing happened. Nothing happened. What do you think was going to happen? What? Yeah.
Yeah. When I went on Tommy Laren's show recently, she was talking to me about how Biden had dementia and how his inner circle is coming out and saying that they knew he had dementia the whole time. And I think she was trying to gotcha me, but I was like, Tommy, my friend, you are not going to get me to disagree with you there. I was saying Biden needed to drop out before the fucking debate, and I was getting a lot of shit from it. My audience was calling me MAGA. I'd be getting way more shit from it now because now I do a show at the Bulwark. It's called FY Pod, which is supposed to evoke FYP, For You page. I think it's the worst fucking title ever. It was my co-host Tim Miller's idea. I think Tim Miller is one of the best messengers with any sort of democratic values right now. I think he's a brilliant spokesperson and stuff like that. He's really one of the best.
Yeah, we've watched some of his stuff. He's a pretty funny guy. Yeah.
Tim is great, and Tim is sincere in a field of insincerity, right? I feel like a lot of the people who do the type of stuff that Tim does are very kind of transparently grifters. But Tim is just a guy who was a Republican for a very long time, worked for the Republican Party, worked for Romney. He was Jeb Bush's comms director. And then Trump got the nomination and he fucking peaced out. And you can see in his messaging and his passion and the way he delivers things that this wasn't some, ooh, I can make a bunch of money now type of business. This was, I can't do this, man. This is not the party that I signed up for. So all this is to say, I don't mean to compliment Tim. I much prefer insulting him, but he is great. He just thought of this fucking awful name, FY Pod, right? It's the Gen Z show for Bulwark, which for those of you who don't know has a largely older audience. Mm-hmm. Like most of the people who watch our shit are greater than 50 years old. And that's why we made FY Pod, which We have like a separate YouTube channel now that we're trying to grow without Bulwark, because if too many Bulwark subscribers click onto it, then the algorithm is going to be trained to only put us in front of old people, and old people like don't really like me.
Okay, jeez.
Yeah, they're like, they just have this kind of like snot-nosed brat characterization for Gen Z, because they're all super mad at Gen Z for turning out for Trump. And I think that,
To be fair, just to be clear, I'm a millennial, so I also hate Gen Z. Okay, just to be.
I'm Gen Z and I hate Gen Z. Like,
Okay,
I
just want
think
to get that out.
to
there,
have
so.
any sort of awareness of how our generation works, or more accurately doesn't work, like you got to hate us a little bit. But I'm like, it's just anyway. Because our audience is older, I think that if I was a Bulwark host while I was calling on Biden to drop out, they would have called me like a fucking rotten little brat who doesn't know a good politician when I see one. But I said to Tommy Lahren, like, girl, I said he should drop out. I was saying he had dementia in fucking 2020. Like, this guy has not really been all there. But, two things. Number one, my question is, do you think Trump is all there? Like, there's this problem where the part of his brain that can be hilarious has not really gone away, but everything else sort of has. Like, he's not. If you go and even watch 2016 Trump, he's speaking with so much more clarity, and he sounds like he's thinking original thoughts. But right now, he just seems like a fucking meat puppet for Peter Thiel.
So, one thing I like to say is if you go back and you listen to the Biden-Trump debate, it's kind of funny. I have the same criticism or observation that you made about Biden versus Bernie. If I was giving Biden debate tips, I think that the principal failure in that debate wasn't that Biden is getting old and sucks at debating and stuttering or whatever else, whatever you want to say about him. The problem actually was that he was just trying to do way too much. That if you listen to Trump give an answer, Trump will just say some fucking wild, crazy, random shit. It's just a slogan. All Trump does is sloganeering. And Biden's like, meanwhile, we try to lower immigration by 10%, and we're given this thing, and we're going to try to do the 400,000 new workers. And it's like, bro, nobody gives a fuck about any of these numbers. I don't know why you're trying to memorize all these numbers. No one cares. All you're going to do is hurt your debate performance, because you're going to end up forgetting something and say some dumb shit, like we finally beat Medicare, okay? Like, don't. Just find some fucking slogans, call Trump, say he's got a small dick or something, make fun of him, and that's it. That's all you have to do. It'll set him off, it'll be funny, and that's it. Because Trump consistently sounds like a crazy person, Trump will never be called senile or old, even though, like you said, like if you listen to him, even now compared to 2016, it is a stark difference. As much as I hate him, and I hate him with every fucking fiber of my being, okay? I do hate him as an individual and an American. He was funny in 2016. He was. You have to admit it. He absolutely was. And he doesn't have any of the snappy comebacks. He's not as personable anymore. He's definitely slowed down a lot. But he'll never be called senile because he was always a dipshit. And being slow and saying stupid, crazy shit is like kind of part of his brand. So,
Yeah, and the thing is, like, Biden has the ability to be affable and funny. I saw him at the White House after the debate. It was like maybe September or October this past year. It was the anniversary of the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. I got invited with a bunch of other, for context to your viewers, I am a school shooting survivor. I don't know if that helps you. I was invited with a bunch of other mass shooting survivors to the White House for this event. And we didn't know this, but Vice President Harris, in the middle of her campaign, and President Biden were there. And Biden goes up and he speaks, and he kind of fucking is great. Like, he sounds sharp. He's making jokes. And I'm like, bro, where the fuck were you 5 months ago? Like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. But it became this roller coaster where after being a bit sharp and witty for a couple minutes, he would then proceed to drift off into Sleepy Joe. But then he would return to sharp and witty and go back to Sleepy Joe. And I wish I had a video of that speech so I could show people, but
I heard a lot of this, that even after the debate, he gave a speech or was talking to people like literally after that night, and people said he sounded way sharper or whatever, and it was like, yeah. I know that people like to throw around different terms. My mom has dementia, and my grandma did, so like I've seen like what dementia people look like. I don't know if Biden is actually at the point where he has like dementia or something. He's definitely slowed down a ton, or maybe senility has come in, but the idea that people will say that Biden was incapable of running the office of the presidency because he sucked at talking or because he seemed slower at debates, I just think that criticism is funny. I don't think you can make that criticism if you're supporting Donald Trump, who there are so many things that he does. Could you imagine I pulled up because I was curious. Did it look like this? When Biden went to sign, I think it was 2 or 3 different executive orders. I don't remember what it was related to. He stood up, went to the podium. Hey, America, we're signing this today because we want to empower the Department of Education, blah, blah, blah. He gives his little thing, and then he sits down and he signs it. Trump sits at a desk, and he's got this pen, and he's like, whoa, what's that? And the guy's like, Mr. President, this is an executive order that we're giving you to sign because it's going to help us do blah, blah. And he's like, oh, okay, well, that sounds good. Like, Trump does this for all of his EOs. Some dude is handing it to him, he's explaining it to him, and then he fucking signs it. And if this was Biden, the accusation would 100% be, wow, who's actually writing these executive orders? Who's actually making these for Trump to sign? You know, does he even know what's going on here? And it's like, Jesus, you know.
It was something that they were saying about Joe when they were talking about how he was too old. They were like, we don't know who's actually calling the shots right now. And I'm like, okay, I know, like, we do know who's calling the shots for Trump, and it's Peter Thiel, Vladimir Putin, and Elon Musk. Like, so, you know, I'm totally fine with whoever is calling the shots for Joe Biden versus the transparently sinister people calling the shots for Donald Trump. I mean, I think that while people are understandably so furious about Musk's influence over the president, there aren't enough conversations happening about Peter Thiel right now. Peter Thiel, who installed his own pick for vice president, J.D. Vance, who I don't believe Donald Trump would have picked otherwise if not for Peter Thiel's involvement. And if you look at Peter Thiel's manifestos that he's put online, this is somebody who wants the American experiment to end, and he wants it to end in failure. It's really, really fucked up. And Thiel is part of a network of these fucking crypto right people who are, have you looked up the techno-feudalism shit? Because I'm just reading up on it right now, and it's really fucking scary.
A little bit. I'm friends with somebody who made a video that blew up about this. The Silly Serious, I think, is her YouTube channel.
I'm not like a public thinker. Like I don't, and nor do I fancy myself one, nor do I fancy myself qualified to talk about a lot of things that people claim that they're qualified to talk about. But these people are purposefully crashing the economy because the more the economy is in shambles, the more power that Trump's billionaire friends can seize. And I think a lot of them wanted to be in on this deal until they realized just how out of control he was.
Yeah, my big issue is it feels like tech bros thought that, man, there's this really fucking annoying phenomenon that happened where people made a lot of money in crypto because they got lucky, which is 99% of people that made money in crypto. And now they come out talking like they know fuck all about finance when they're utterly clueless. And then a lot of people don't realize that finance and economics, these are two totally separate fields of study, okay? Just because you know something about economics, I mean, you fuck all about finance. Just because you know a bit about finance, I mean, you fuck all about economics. But you have people who got lucky in crypto or some other like crypto adjacent space, I'll say. And now they think that like they know how to run world economies and run the world. It's like that abolish the Fed shit from the Ron Paul people, except on fucking steroids. And for these people to just come in and they're like, yeah, let's get rid of all the bureaucracy and let's get rid of all these useless departments. And it's like, hold on, buddy. Maybe these things actually were important. Maybe these things actually meant something. And yeah, it's so crazy to me how like the argument against a technocracy was supposed to be that there would be an overrepresentation of one type of class of person and it might unintentionally lead to the disenfranchisement of other citizens. It wasn't supposed to be technocrats are actually going to be even more fucking stupid than the average person because they're going to overestimate their competency and intelligence in every other area and then fuck everything up, which is more what it seems to be the case of, is the latter rather than the former, which has been very, very, very frustrating. Like, how do I explain to somebody that 10% tariffs on the entire world is a catastrophic economic decision that nobody thought was actually going to happen, and here we are, or that like nobody reasonable would have thought reasonably would ever be possible? Yeah,
tech bros thinking they're smart is really, really tough, because like you said, you can be extremely smart and competent in one field and make a lot of money doing it, and people kind of normie fucking sheep think that because someone's good at something and rich means that, like you said, they're good at money, and those are just different things. But people point at San Francisco right now and talk about it as this like liberal governing failure. And I'm like, if you have any understanding of the modern history of the city of San Francisco, you know that the shit they're going through right now is because they got fucked by big tech, and fucking big tech came in, drove all the prices up on everything, made it like, I mean, not like gentrification, like Uber gentrification, like gentrification on fucking amphetamines. And then COVID happened and they were like, okay, bye. And the people of San Francisco are left with fuck all. And it's really a bit of a disaster. So I definitely think that post crypto Trump is pretty fucking brutal. I think that crypto just went and made everything worse. It made it easier for people to buy child porn. It made it easier for people to launder money, and it made a couple people a bunch of money. And look, I did make $1,200 off of Dogecoin in early 2021, and I did kind of think I was fucking Jordan Belfort for a little bit. I was watching Princess Diaries with my girlfriend at the time, and I was trying to focus on Princess Diaries because I did think it was a great movie, although the second one is significantly better.
Wait,
but I was
this
also
movie is
just
like
sitting there-
30 years old, isn't it?
You'd think I would have seen it by now.
Okay. Well, I just don't know why you'd even be watching it, but sorry, go ahead.
She wanted to watch Princess Diaries. I wanted to watch how Dogecoin was doing that day. And I was like, ooh, I'm a like mini financial trader. So I do understand why these people are so fucking high on their own supply. Like the $1,200 I made on crypto, that was a lot of money for me at the time. Frankly, still is.
Then you
it
do your
gave me-
first profitable trade, and now you're breaking out the charts. You got your Robinhood account up, and you're looking at the double bull pattern emerging, and you're like,
Fortunately, I knew at the time that sometimes you got to take yes for an answer.
Okay.
And sometimes when something good happens, you don't turn it into a yes and.
Okay.
Right. That's a piece of advice that I give a lot of people is a lot of the fuck ups I've made in my life have either come from me not taking no for an answer or me not taking yes for an answer and seeing something good happen and pushing it instead of being like, this is a good thing, I accept it, moving on. So Dogecoin, by then I knew, okay, this was a blessing from the crypto god, and I am going to accept this blessing, pay my rent. You know, that was back in COVID when $1,200 could actually get you a studio apartment in New York City. Now it's very different. But I resent crypto so deeply. I think that culturally, financially, governmentally, it's just been the fucking worst.
yeah, I used to say this a lot, that the issue with crypto is there is a whole bunch of utility that's like baked into it, and there's a bunch of cool theoretical stuff that could come from it. But if you look at the way that people in crypto spaces talk about crypto, you could tell that was never the actual thing, because like the way you can very quickly tell a true crypto believer from a false one is anytime there are these like massive, you could say a massive price surge in Bitcoin or any other crypto, and all these people are like, yes, that's awesome. And it's like, well, no, I thought you wanted this to be like a stable currency. If you have the prices fluctuating wildly, even if they're going up, that doesn't bode well for pricing. It doesn't make it work well as a currency. This has become an asset that you're basically just gambling with, a speculative asset or anything, right? Like you don't actually care about the underlying technology or any of the derivative stuff like NFTs or any of these other coins that are made. You're just looking to get rich off of it. That's not good for a currency, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, the crypto 1% is reliant on the crypto 99% not really knowing how it works. Like most of the people who power these currencies, most of the people who are really, really bought into this stuff are just listening to whatever fucking podcaster is telling them what to do. And they don't completely know it works. And I think one of the big mistakes that happened, and keep in mind, I don't know fucking shit about finance. I dropped out of high school because there was a fucking mass shooting at my high school. I went to 1.5 semesters of college. I actually don't even know what like basic stocks are. So fuck me for saying any of this. But
Jesus.
it doesn't take a financial expert to say that a lot of the crypto normies got excited about decentralization, but what they were really excited about was deregulation. They were excited that there was something with no rules. They were less excited. They were pretending to be excited that there was something without all the bureaucracy. But sometimes rules exist for a reason, and sometimes there are systems in place that work, right? And that's something a lot of MAGA people found out is they got so excited about cutting government programs without realizing that some of those government programs that were getting cut were programs that they relied on for their well-being. I mean, and it's only going to get worse. Like, who the fuck knows what's about to happen to Social Security? All I know is that it's bad. And a lot of people who are receiving those checks voted for the folks who are going to try to dismantle that type of thing. So crypto and Doge, not only the coin, but also the fucking government program, like these
Whatever
are
the fuck
wolves
it was.
they're wolves in wolves' clothing. And I think that they have always kind of been telling people just how dark their agenda is. But people hear, like we said before, the simplest thing, and they latch onto that. Doge, government spending less money. That's good for you. Crypto, you're not going to have a bunch of fucking VPs from Wells Fargo looking over your shoulder. That's good for you. But then there's more to this shit, you know? And I think that to be a smart American and to be a smart member of this country is to know what you don't know and to recognize the systems in place that you don't understand. I am not an expert in a lot of things, but I have a keen awareness that I am not an expert in a lot of things. And that makes me a little bit more awake an individual than a lot of people who don't know how shit works, but they pretend that they do. And that's a big problem, is that we have normalized stupidity, and we are not allowing space for people to admit that they don't know shit, and they support things because they seem like they work, and you do your reading when you can. But, basically what I'm saying is that a lot of people think that they're experts in stuff, and that leads to things like crypto and things like Trump voters. And a huge part of that, and this is kind of abstract and bullshit, but a huge part of that was when you started getting to pay for being verified on Twitter. I swear to God, I will say it loudly, everything went to shit when you could pay for verification. I mean, dude, do you remember back in the good old days when being verified fucking meant something?
Dude, the blue checks on Twitter, that's when you knew you'd made it. That was like...
I walked into a room and I said, you know the meme of the guy standing in the corner at the party, like, they don't know that I'm blank?
Exactly, yeah,
like,
that I'm Twitter
They
verified.
don't know that I'm actually a blue check. So even if I'm not the coolest person in this room, I might very well be the most verified person in this room.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's just like, oh no, you're a page posting Pepe the Frog saying slurs. Good for you.
Yeah, that platform got obliterated in some ways that I think were almost intentional. Elon Musk has been... If you would have asked me 5 or 6 years ago, even when the Elon Musk hate started, I was always willing to give him credit for SpaceX and Tesla, because I do believe that Tesla pushed the electric vehicles industry forward at least a decade. And the idea of America not being able to launch rockets anymore when we went to the moon, I thought that was really cool. And now I feel like listen, I'm a hardcore capitalist, okay? But I think we should expropriate the fuck out of his companies and kick him the fuck out of this country when the Dems get back in office, assuming we have real elections again. Because holy fuck, this guy has influenced the American politic in such a negative and disastrous way. It's just unbelievable. And yeah, that Twitter platform just being completely obliterated was just, it was one of many absolutely horrible things that Elon Musk contributed to. Him going from, I don't know if you ever had this... impression. God, it's really weird talking to somebody who's 24, because I'm realizing now that I want to go back 8 years so much, and I realize that you would have been 16 at the time. So I'm trying to remember, okay, what would you have even kept track of?
I was like a relatively plugged in 16-year-old, I would say.
Sure, yeah. I don't know if you had this phenomenon or you noticed this, but there were so many centrist-y people, and every single one of these guys was a Trump sycophant. They would say, I'm a centrist, I don't know who I'd vote for, and it's like, oh, okay, well, so you might vote for Kamala or Biden? Well, probably not. Definitely, no, I don't think so. Oh, so you think you vote for Trump? Yeah, I guess. And it was always this faux reluctance of I guess I'd vote for Trump. And yeah, for Elon Musk in the span of, what was it, 12 to 24 months, Elon Musk went from, I'm glad that I triggered the right and left equally. I think it's really important for Twitter to remain a neutral platform, to be doing stump speeches for Donald Trump, donating millions of dollars to his campaign. What was it, $20 or $30 million for the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, to be a part of his administration and to be a cat. It's like, what
lost,
the fuck?
By the way.
Yeah, they got obliterated on. Yeah.
I guess I have one statement and then a question for you. My statement is that I go on CNN and MSNBC and talk about this. This is a message that I want to spread far and wide, is that the moderate voter is the Democratic Party's imaginary friend. If they someone who would actually be willing to vote for 34-time convicted felon Donald Trump, but then Kamala Harris says something slightly further to the right of what your average Democrat might say, and then they'll be like, oh, I'm Liz Cheney now. That's a made up type of person. My co-host Tim Miller is a type of person that you don't see very often, and a type of person that you want to see. But I truly think that a lot of these so-called moderates are part of what I casually and unprofessionally call the fake moderate industrial complex, which is that in swing states, I think certain voters are conditioned to sit on the fence during elections so they can talk to the New York Times about how they're on the fence. But it's like somebody who would vote for Mitt Romney voting for Obama or vice versa, I can believe that, right? And somebody, even fucking Hillary and Trump, because we hadn't seen the Trump presidency in action before, I can buy that too. But if somebody is going to vote for Donald Trump after the Capitol riot, after the convictions, after Trump v1, they're not going to vote for Kamala Harris. So all this money that you're spending trying to get these fucking moderates to support you instead of Donald Trump is money you could be spending tapping the much bigger base of people who just don't fucking vote.
Sure.
There are infinitely more people who aren't showing up to vote because they're not given something to vote for. They're not being marketed to than there are Liz Cheney Republicans. It's something that I say about how so many young men have been turned to the right. The Democrats are not marketing to young white men, and they're not telling us what they're going to do for us because, I want women to control their bodies. I want the government to provide services to people who need them. So of course I'm going to vote for Democrats. And I think the Democrats were so afraid to seem like they were pandering to white men and being racist misogynists that they didn't even bother. And the right was able to say, hey, white men who feel left out by the Democratic Party, we're here for you. Like, you've got a seat at the table, baby. As a matter of fact, the table's for you. And anybody who doesn't agree has the woke mind virus.
Yeah, I feel like I disagree for a few reasons, observations. These are really challenging concepts that I've tried to wrap my head around. So maybe you've seen differently, or maybe you disagree. We can incorporate each other's worldviews into each other's worldviews. I think that one thing, there's two things on one concept, and that's the moderate. So one, I would draw a distinction between online things and real world things. So in the online world, your moderates, people like Tim Pool or Dave Rubin, these people are demons. They are not moderate. They are.
Wait, is Tim Pool a moderate?
Well, I don't know if he pretends he is anymore, but he used to say all the time, like, oh, like, I'm not even far right. I'm just kind of like a more moderate, independent kind of guy. Like, he would say, I don't know if maybe he's dropped that fucking facade after the Russian money dried up. Who knows? But yeah, these people.
It's a farce.
These people, yeah, or Dave Rubin would say all the time, well, I'm a classical liberal. I came from, was it the Majority Report or the Young Turks? I don't know who spit him out.
He was on Young Turks and then became like a classical liberal. Left the left.
Yeah, exactly.
And now he's just saying whatever Russia tells him to say.
Yeah, so those people are demons, okay? And they're liars, and they misrepresent everything, and they know it, okay? However, when it comes to moderate or independent voters, I think a moderate voter is not a person. There's this kind of weird illusion that we think that a moderate voter is somebody who's in the middle of everything, when in reality, I think a moderate voter or an independent voter is just a person who has a couple positions that they feel very strongly about on both sides. So like a moderate voter might be somebody who's like, I'm against minimum wage and I don't like regulations and I'm pro-business and all that, but I really do believe in a woman's right to choose an abortion. Like, I think that pro-choice should be a big thing. That would be like a moderate voter. It's not somebody who's like, I'm 50-50 on abortion and I'm 50-50 on taxes and everything else. It's somebody who has a couple strong positions on both sides, number one. And then number two, I think that when we talk about the average voter, this is really hard. And I'm sure you've seen, there's been so many articles about this. Political people are really weird, right? If you go to DC, those people are weird. You're weird, I'm weird. Everybody that follows politics, we skew way off the norm when it comes to understanding what's happening in our political system. If you go to an average person and you try to explain like what a constitutional crisis is, the average American's probably going to think that somebody stole like the Declaration of Independence and they're going to set it on fire. Like that, like the average voter just has no concept of what, like when you say January 6th was an insurrection, which I firmly believe, and I will debate anybody in the world on that, but an average person's like, okay, I don't know what that even means. It was a riot. It's like, no.
Because they walked outside and the grass was still green and the grocery store was still open.
And it's like, don't you have a right to protest? Like, wasn't BLM an insurrection? Like, no, they tried to overthrow the election. Overthrow it? How? Okay, so, well, they were trying to change all the elector certificates. Electors? What the fuck is that? Well, like when you vote for president, what is the elector? Oh, like the electoral college? Well, kind of, but there's also different people. It's like impossible. I've noticed that there are so many things. Like, what's wrong with an executive order targeting a law firm? Why can't the DOJ do that? There's like so much civics that you have to explain to a person to even get them to understand why it's wrong. Most voters aren't plugged in on that level. So when you say, I don't know how somebody can go from voting for Biden or voting for from Obama to Trump, how can they do that? Well, the reason why they can do that is because they saw Trump on TV and he was really funny and Hillary kind of sounds stuck up. And so they voted for Trump. And then from Trump to Biden, I think Biden won a lot on Trump's hate and because COVID felt really shitty. And then from Biden to Trump, it was, well, inflation was pretty sticky. The cumulative effects were felt. Prices were high. I'm going to vote for Trump. And for a lot of people, like, and when I say a lot, I mean like 70% of Americans, I think that the math starts and stops there. They have no concept of anything relating to a TRO or the Supreme Court or Abrego Garcia or whatever. Like, most people just have no concept. They're not plugged in that much at all, which I think is really hard as an online political person to wrap your mind around. Because you see an average person, you're like, bro, deportation with no due process. And they're like, no due process? Well, wasn't he an illegal immigrant? I don't know. Do I care? Probably not. It's like, well, fuck, you know?
Yeah, this is the stuff that makes me feel more like a fucking normie chud than anything, is when I'm trying to analyze what exactly went wrong in this election. Because in the days following the election, especially, I would see certain tweets that said, people who are saying this is about racism and misogyny are missing the point. This is about the economy. This is about Harris trying to play the wrong games with the economy, and how Biden's economy wasn't good. And I would be like, they're totally right. This whole it's racism and misogyny thing is performative crap that the wokesters are doing. And then I would see a tweet that's like, the people who are saying it's about the economy are missing the point. This is racism and misogyny. And I would be like, yeah, you know what? That makes sense too. So, analysis of what happened with this election. I think one of the things it was missing was this very silent uprising of people who were sick of the steps forward being taken towards equity and inclusion. I think a lot of people felt like things had gone too far. People aren't talking about this. I think that a lot of dudes were really upset about Me Too, because when Me Too happened, there was this big reckoning that in many ways raised awareness, and in many ways didn't raise enough awareness, because that shit still happens just as much all the time. But a lot of young men, right as we were entering adulthood, a lot of guys, I was like 15 when Me Too really caught steam. It was created in 2007 by a Black woman, and it was not some random thing that popped up with Harvey Weinstein. But around the Harvey Weinstein time, when it really picked up, I remember my relationships with women have been permanently, they've been forged by my understanding of Me Too. And I'm very happy about that. I sleep very easy at night knowing that when I am in a sexual situation with a woman, I am very, very aware of, or at least I'm trying to be very aware of whether or not I am making sure she is comfortable. I am very, very afraid of making somebody feel pressured or uncomfortable. And that has been a very positive thing for my life and for the lives of people I've been interested in, because there are decisions that I haven't made because I've been nervous that those would cause pressure. And at the end of the day, if they're into you, like, you being cautious is not going to make them not into you. Like, for example, I've asked people if I could kiss them before. There have also been times where I've just kind of gone for it because the signals have been very clear. But there have been some times where I said, you know what, this seems like the type of situation where I ask. And I have a lot of female friends, which also differentiates me from a lot of young men on my side of the aisle, and a lot of young men on the right, obviously. But point is, I have a lot of female friends, and I've heard some of them say, he asked if he could kiss me. That gave me the ick. That was so cringe. And I've heard other women say, he asked if he could kiss me. That was so gallant and chivalrous. I love him. And I'm just like, listen, if she wants to kiss you, you asking is not going to change the answer. But it might prevent you making an advance on somebody that's going to make them feel uncomfortable or unsafe. All this is to say, I am fully aware that Me Too had a huge impact on how I live my life and interact with other people, specifically women, obviously. I think that Me Too played a very big hand in making young men in my generation upset about woke, upset about feminism and gender equality. It got a lot of us saying that third wave feminism has gone too far. And it kind of turned on a certain anger that just compounded. And then COVID happens. We're all stuck on our phones looking at TikTok, and the social media overlords are feeding us this content that is radical. And they're putting us in front of the types of people who are preying on our insecurities and our fears. And a lot of us saw Me Too and said, everybody's mad about men. Everybody's treating all men like they're predators. I'm not a predator. Why are they mad at me? And suddenly we feel like we are the victim. I guess the larger point that I'm making is, I think Trump won a cultural election, and I think the economy was a big factor, sure. But I think a lot more people quietly voted against social progression more than anything, because that's where most of his messaging was.
Yeah, it's hard to figure out why people do the things they do, because oftentimes people don't even know. People will say like, oh, well, I voted for this guy because of, X reason. And it's really just because, he told a funny joke and you like him, or people. But that sounds like shitty to say. Nobody wants to say like, I voted for Trump because he's funny. I think that Trump being funny and charismatic, I think explains more than 50% of the success he's had politically. Which is why I'm not, thank God, knock on wood, I'm not as worried about post-Trump because there's not like another cult like personality person that can replace him. So I'm not as worried for like a Trump dynasty because his son definitely can't do it. And Elon Musk isn't going to do it. And I haven't seen anybody else say they can do it. But I think that there was this huge issue that cropped up. Have you ever heard the term intersectional before?
Of course.
Progressives used to have this concept of intersectionality, which in practice sounds really good, that there are multiple dimensions or ways that different things can come together and impact how a person is perceived by society and perceives society. And an intersectional approach is good because it lets us analyze people in a more sophisticated way. Regardless of how you feel about him, Barack Obama did not have the same type of lived experience as an incredibly poor black person, growing up in a horrible area, in the ghetto, single family, whatever. But Barack Obama in some ways did have a similar person to every other black person in the United States. And there are ways that they're similar, there are ways that they're dissimilar. And it's important to be able to analyze things that way. Somewhere along the way, I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was a Marxist thing. All of the progressive analysis shifted to these oppressor-oppressee dynamics, and all the intersectionality got ejected. And now, if you're perceived as being part of that upper class, everything about you is bad. And you'll have these concepts related to minorities like microaggressions, right? Well, when you say or do these small things over a period of time, it builds up, it otherizes people, makes them feel like shit. And they have that understanding still when it comes to minority classes. But for some reason, when it came to like white men especially, that understanding just got completely tossed. Like when women say all men are rapists, they don't actually mean all men are rapists. Or when women say fuck men or men should die, they don't necessarily mean that. Like you have to understand this is where they're coming from. And it's like, oh, okay. So if I say I hate black people and fuck black people, there are too many criminals, like I would be canceled immediately for saying that. I can't say that, right? For good reason, and I should be able to. Or I should be like, I think people should look at that in an incredibly critical way. But when you start drawing all these double standards, yeah, I think that especially white men were kind of like thrown to the wolves. And by the wolves, I mean the Jordan Petersons and the red pills. And we kind of saw some of the fallout of that. Although the recent poll that I saw, I think from YouGov, showed that pretty harshly turning, doing a 180. I don't know if that's because of the recent economy shit or whatever, but hopefully that comes back. But
yeah, I think
progressives
that,
and liberals need to talk to young men a lot better, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think two things. Number one, to your point, it takes a certain amount of emotional maturity. I don't think it takes actually that much, but the bar is pretty low. It takes a certain amount of emotional maturity to understand that when a woman says I hate men and when a black person says I hate white people, it's very different than a man saying I hate women and a white person saying I hate black people, because we live in a country where the systems of power are designed to favor us. One time I was with a bunch of women, and this is when I was in college, and I was living in New York City, and I would take all these walks at 3 a.m. And I, blissfully unburdened by gender inequality, I just said to my female friends, like, do you guys ever like just take a walk at 3 a.m.? Like, isn't it so peaceful and nice? And they all just started laughing because they're fucking women, and taking a walk at 3 a.m. is scary as fuck. And that was when something dawned on me, that I was like, oh my God, this whole thing I hear about how it's easier to be a man. Wait a second. I just walk down the street at 3 a.m. I'm not scared of the cops. If I see a cop, I'm like, hey, what's up? How's it going? And if you know what I'm saying? So when I hear black people say that they're sick of white people in their lives, I'm like, yeah, seeing as you are in this very country, you were actually just pretty recently considered lesser beings, and by many white people in this country, dare I say most, still considered to be that way. I get why you're saying that. And I don't say that about women and black people because I'm doing okay. This country really works for me, and I walk down the street feeling totally comfortable. But to the other thing you were saying, I think that intersectionality has been a failure by the left, not because of the embrace of intersectionality, but because a failure to embrace the real intersectional issues. Because the thing is, young men learned when the economy just tanked that the Republican Party is bad for stuff that affects us too. Right before the election, I was like, yep, Trump is going to be bad for women. Sorry about the police siren. I'm in fucking New York City.
You're good.
Trump is going to be bad for women and minorities, but as a white man, he's not really going to bother me. The Democrats had the opportunity. They shouldn't have said intersectional because the right has turned that into a fucking boogeyman word. But the left had the opportunity to talk about intersectional issues like the economy that affects everyone. And that was one of the first things I said after the election. I was getting trolled by the right for it, and I didn't give a shit because when the right trolls you, they fucking drive you up in the algorithm and get you more views. So troll away, gang. But I was saying, like, Trump is bad for us too. And there are issues like the economy, like the government, like fucking drunk dudes leaking our Yemen war plans that affect everybody. So I think that intersectionality is sort of like woke and sort of like DEI and stuff like that, where it's just a word that and you know what else it's like? It's like gaslighting. It is a word that the internet has stripped of its fucking meaning. People call someone a gaslighter because they
lied to them.
Right?
Yeah, I say this all the time. Yeah, your boyfriend didn't gaslight you. He lied to you because he was cheating on you. He lied to you. He didn't gaslight you. Why are you saying this? Yeah, people do this, the weaponization of therapy language all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think intersectionality is the thing that the Democratic Party has going for it when used accurately, when talking about real intersectional issues that affect everybody. And that's something that they failed to do. And it's like, you know, I really think white men have seen these steps forward towards progression and have been convinced that these steps that are being taken at our expense, right? That when women and minorities gain something, that means I'm losing something. And it's a very simplistic idea. When they gain, we lose. And the Republican Party, which thrives on simplicity, which thrives on people not reading further into things, it wants people to be uneducated because of the fact that college-educated voters tend to vote for Democrats. They were able to seize this opportunity, whereas Democrats were saying, no, we don't have to talk to these young white men. And it was a huge fucking disaster.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's frustrating because there's this concept of purity testing, and I think purity testing to some extent is good. Like, we want to have, like, all of these terms we use, like virtue signaling, purity testing, they're good in moderation. Like, you want to virtue signal to people that, like, hey, you know, I'm not a rapist, or I support, you know, like, people being free, or I think it's good to help people at the grocery store if they drop their stuff, right? I want to signal that I'm a good person, or yeah, just in general, it's okay to virtue signal these things. It's okay to it's okay to message on stuff like this. Something happened to where and for the purity testing thing, something happened. I don't know how or why this happened, but on the right, the purity test is, do you support Donald Trump? And as long as you support Donald Trump and you're willing to vote for him and you back all his major policies, then it's whatever, they'll accept you. On the left, online at least, and the Bulwark is accepted from this, which is one of the reasons why I fell into, like, the Bulwark's content and people like Scott Galloway and Kara Swisher. The left does this strange purity test online over all of these values, but in the end, they don't end up voting for the Democratic candidate, which is very, very, very frustrating. So they have all the purity testing, and they have all these, like, very, very woke progressive ideas or whatever, but then in the end, they don't actually turn out to vote. They end up shitting on both candidates. And it's so frustrating to see that it feels like even Democratic politicians end up falling into this messaging where they're messaging to these very woke progressive type people and probably turning off kind of like center left voters, but they're not actually getting any of those very progressive or woke votes because they all say that they hate them because, you know, they're pro Gaza genocide, or they think that they're not woke enough to fight the Trump admin, or they're all the same at the end of the day, left and right. And I remember I was doing interviews for the upcoming DNC, or it already happened, the DNC race. And I remember I asked every single candidate, what do you think the Democratic Party can do to message more effectively to young white men, people that are primarily my audience? And none of them wanted to answer. Well, there was one guy, but none of the big people wanted to answer that question. Like, they would immediately pivot off it to, well, the Democrats can help all people. Or for Marianne Williamson, she said, well, men's problems are actually women's problems too. And it's like, hold on.
Wait, pause. Sorry. Marianne Williamson was running for a DNC position?
She was running for the chair of the DNC, yeah. She's a wacky
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
She had a book. I'll never forget this part of Marianne Williamson. She had a book where she called AIDS, Angels in Darth Vader Suits. That's Marianne Williamson's take on AIDS.
What's that? There's got to be some context there. Certainly she didn't think it was good. Was it
no,
way to,
but
like,
I don't know.
nicely to gay people, or what? I don't understand.
I'm sure she loves gay people. I just don't know what context could make calling AIDS angels in Darth Vader suits sound like a good idea. You know, I don't, even if she said, hey, I've got a really stupid idea for an acronym for AIDS, it would still be like, okay, keep that to yourself. And also, Darth Vader is not one word, Marianne. Like, Darth Vader is very famously 2 words. But, you know, yeah, I don't really know how the DNC works. And therefore, when people were asking me about the DNC election, I sort of bit my tongue because I was like, okay, I know that there's a chair of the DNC. I know that there's official positions in the DNC. I don't know what they really do.
Don't worry, I don't think anybody does. So
I think they're supposed they end up being messengers of the party, which means that you want it to be someone good. But look, I think that there is nuance to this, as there is to everything, in terms of how to not isolate these moderate voters by getting lost in woke word salad, but also not abandon the values that the woke word salad exists to stand for, right?
Yeah.
So when Gavin Newsom is going on podcasts and saying the trans athletes thing has gone too far, I'm like, Gavin, you don't need to give that, I don't even want to call it an issue. It's so fucking fake. You don't need to give that right-wing talking point the light of day. Throwing trans people under the bus is not going to get you more voters. At the end of the day, the Republicans who you're trying to pander to, they're laughing up their sleeve at you, Gavin. They think you're a fucking joke. They think all of us are woke commies. The people, and I keep on saying this, I'm a broken record, but it's true. The people you need to target are the people who aren't showing up to the polls. And a lot of those people are working class individuals who, if a Democratic candidate isn't promising them any real change that's going to immediately affect their lives, I mean, if they're working 2 jobs, like, how are they just going to make it to the polls? Mail-in voting is kind of a hassle. It isn't, but it seems like one. Like, you need
we
to
don't have
give
to worry
these
about
people
that
some,
because they're trying to get rid of mail-in voting everywhere now. So maybe we won't even have to worry about mail-in voting anymore.
I'm so torn on the midterms thing because my co-host Tim, who's a much smarter man than I am, he says that.
Let me guess. He says we're going to kill it, right?
He says we're probably going to be having elections. I'm like,
Oh,
is it really that much of a jump to say that this administration is going to get rid of fair elections? And if we have a fair election, fucking interfere in it so aggressively that it's not really an actual democratic election? Because I think that the right has been able to take election interference, something that they fucking do and something that Russia has been proven to do. Like, they're able to take that and just frame it as Trump derangement syndrome. They have convinced their voters that any discussion about election fraud is TDS. Don't worry about it. Don't look any further into it. And it's like, no, this is a real thing they fucking do. And then Trump has the audacity, which is so funny of me to say because all he is audacity, but he has the audacity to go in and suggest that the Democrats are doing voter fraud too. That's the Republicans for you. Voter fraud isn't a real thing. It doesn't exist. And also the Democrats are doing it whenever I mean, I'm pretty sure Elon said that happened in Wisconsin, but Elon does this thing. It's so annoying. And people memed it into being relatively funny, but he'll take somebody's tweet where they're making an insane assertion. It could very well be him on a puppet account or a bot or somebody he's using as a puppet account. He'll take somebody's tweet where they make an insane assertion and he won't endorse it. He won't quote tweet it and say, this is what I believe. He'll comment some shit like looking into it or interesting or
yeah.
And it is him endorsing it. He wants it in front of his audience and he wants to convince people that's what it is. But since it's so fucking absurd, he is putting himself in a position where he could be like, oh, I didn't actually endorse that concept. I just said I was going to look into it. And he does it all the fucking time. It actually drives me nuts. I am so fucking jaded and cynical being someone who survived a school shooting, got propped up by the American media as, you know, one of the kids who's going to save us from guns. And then we didn't get any meaningful gun reform. Like it takes a lot to emotionally affect me, but something about Elon's fucking looking into it tweets pisses me off so much because it's cowardly. It's cowardice.
It's not even that. That's not what's the upsetting part. The upsetting part is that it's actually gaslighting because everybody knows what you mean when you highlight something and you bring attention to a thing, but you don't like explicitly say something about it. Everybody knows what you're doing and you know what you're doing. But for them to pretend that they don't, and then for them to hold the other side accountable when they do, like if, like how many times did you hear over all the Trump criminal stuff, you know, like the Mar-a-Lago document stuff or the January 6th stuff? Like, well, I can't read Trump's mind. I don't know what's in Trump's mind. But you better fucking believe that if a Democrat says anything about anything, all of a sudden it's like, when they said that, they actually meant this. And when Hunter Biden said the big man, he was actually referring to Joe Biden. And that 10% and the Joe Podesta or John Podesta and the CP is for child porn and all this. Like, damn. So you can't read Trump's mind when he literally fucking says verbatim, this is secret stuff. I should have declassified it and I didn't. You can't read his mind there, but you can read the mind of every single person involved in the Democratic Party because of emails that were selectively leaked by WikiLeaks from a guy that fucking hates the United States. How the fuck does that work? It's because they know that they're playing a game and you know they know it and they pretend not to. And it's so fucking frustrating. Yeah.
It's so crazy. I mean, this is like a normie take. I'm not reinventing the wheel here. It's so crazy that they treated Hillary's email thing like she did 9/11, and then fucking Pete Hegseth is sending drunk messages to people leaking our war plans, and they're like, oh, he had a few, don't worry about it. But, I have to go to a work lunch in 22 minutes, so I kind of want to do some tinfoil shit with you before I have to go.
Yeah.
I want to do some edgy, crazy stuff.
Okay.
Why haven't we heard about the attempted Trump assassin? Like, people learned so goddamn much about the shooter from my high school, and I think it's a very complicated issue the way we discuss people who commit these acts of public violence, because on the one hand, a lot of them do it for fame and notoriety. I mean, the shooter from my high school said it in his video manifesto. He wanted to be the next big school shooter or something like that. So on the one hand, you don't want to give these people too much attention because you don't want to encourage copycats and tell them you get to be something of a dark legend by doing this. But people learned so fucking much about the shooter from my high school, and that would be fine if they learned any fucking lessons about him, because he was an alt-right freak who was carving swastikas into desks and who brought a knife to school. And it's like, it is important for schools to be aware of what happens when they ignore these warning signals. But they made a fucking evil celebrity. I mean, I was getting tweets from fan accounts of the shooter from my high school. There were fan accounts from the guy who killed 17 people at my high school and shot 17 others that were like, we love him, we love blank, I'm not going to say his name. And yet somebody shoots Trump in the ear in something that is 1 inch away from being one of the biggest political things in American history. And it's this kid who's like 20 years old. And I'm just curious why you think we stopped talking about it, why we don't have any information about him.
Am I supposed to engage with this seriously, or do you want the conspiracy?
This is your truth. I'm asking you for your truth.
So, honestly, I think the reality is I think that unfortunately there are times when reality is crazy and there are just times when reality is boring. And some people are just fucking insane and they do insane shit. And sometimes, unfortunately, there's just not a better answer than that. I think that honestly, can I say this intellectually honestly? I think maybe a bigger story even, or a more crazy event, was the Vegas shooting. And we never really...
Oh, that guy was fucking Black Ops, CIA shit.
Yeah.
Like,
we never got anything about that guy. And this motherfucker injured, what was it, like 600 people? This guy ended up shooting like 60
I'm pretty
dead.
sure he killed at least like 36 people.
I'm pretty, I think it was like 50 or 60 people dead. That was this guy had like fucking 10 bifles set up. He was like bringing in bags and bags of ammo. Yeah, that was crazy.
I think that a lot of people have been so conditioned by Call of Duty to think that it's possible to kill that many people from that high a vantage point with an AR-15. But you have to be very, very skilled with a piece of machinery like that to do that. Guns are not how they work in video games, right? Like, some random fucking freak is not going to be dropping that many bodies from 1 trillion feet high with that type of weapon at that speed. This is somebody who magically nobody knows anything about. There's no information about him. And, there's this thing called Occam's razor. There's a famous video of Dave Rubin explaining Occam's razor, and what he's actually explaining is Murphy's Law. He goes up and he says, "There's another razor. It's called Occam's razor, and it means when something can go wrong, it will." And it's like, Jesus Christ, Dave Rubin, like, you don't have to make certain assertions. Like, if you're gonna say shit that's wrong, every time he says something stupid like that, he's the one who brought it up. But anyway, Occam's razor is the theoretical principle that suggests that the simplest explanation for something is the most likely explanation because it requires the least amount of speculation.
Sure.
And in my opinion, the Occam's razor cuts that this was a fucking U.S., trained guy who is some sort of military operative who went fucking insane, probably from being that. And then it just disappears from the media. We don't talk about it anymore. And it's so much harder to believe that this is just some random fucking normie with a giant arsenal who's dropping so many bodies. But I don't think there's any further discussion here because I don't think we aren't aligned on that one.
Yeah, I think I'm a very boring non-conspiratorial person, so that's my general
But
take.
even non-conspiratorial people, like there is something fucking wrong with that shooting. And
Maybe, yeah. I think sometimes what'll happen though is, and I just noticed because someone in my chat said that they released a 50-page report on a guy. If that's true, I didn't even know that. I haven't read that. Sometimes there'll be a big like conspiracy, or people wonder like, well, what's going on with this thing? And then when a report gets released and there's nothing juicy in it, nobody actually reads it or cares about it. Not to step on a huge landmine here, because I know what you Zoomers think about Epstein and everything, but I was curious on the Epstein stuff, and I set aside like a whole week to do research. Like, okay, who killed Epstein? Like, what actually happened here? And the Federal Prisons Bureau, I think, or the Bureau of Federal Prisons or whatever, they released a whole report on everything that happened with Epstein, and the details of the Epstein stuff are very juicy and salacious. His camera happened to be out that night when he died, for no reason, and it's just totally like impossible to imagine. This guy was on suicide watch already. It's impossible to imagine that this was just him killing himself. Somebody must have got him. But then when you go through and you read the full report, it's like, well, half the cameras in the prison weren't working. The DVR had been busted for weeks. They had already put in multiple repair requests. I think it was either Slate or maybe it was The Atlantic released a thing where they had like 60 different federal prisoners that had died over the past few years just to show the horrible state of our prisons. And it just so happened that Epstein was one of those people who probably wanted to kill himself because that dude was fucked in terms of his federal case. And but when you tell the story that way, that's not very salacious or entertaining. So I think people just don't care as much. Same thing with like JFK assassination stuff, but yeah.
I think people are just like, look, this is someone who has compromising information about probably a pretty insane amount of the most elite and powerful people in the world. And there is a high chance that in order to save his ass, he was going to squeal. I'm not going to go on record saying that I'm not going to go on record saying that I don't think Epstein killed himself. But it's like, do you blame people for seeing the type of shit that people get away? Like fucking, is it Boeing that was just killing whistleblowers? Which Boeing asked? Yeah. Oh, these whistleblowers are conveniently killing themselves right when they're about to testify about these giant, extremely powerful companies. Oh, these union leaders in South America happen to, I guess, get a little bit sad and decide to end it all right when they're about to unionize against these giant American companies. It's like they're asking us to believe in a lot of fucking coinky dinks about people who conveniently happen to know a lot of information. And you can't blame the average person for going with the Occam's razor and being like, gee, if you piss off the most powerful people in the world, famously, they might be able to get you killed in a fake convenient suicide.
This is the deal that I would ask, okay? Okay, I won't back the conspiracy, but I will say, if you want to back the conspiracy, okay, at least for Epstein, please always remember to point out that this guy said he was best friends with Donald Trump, and he died in a federal prison while Donald Trump was president. So if anybody killed him, it was fucking Trump, okay? That's the only thing I ask. If you're going to buy into the conspiracy, Trump fucking killed him, all right?
I have a recommendation to your viewers with my last 14 minutes.
Go for it.
Fun fact, my day job is in the theater. I'm about to meet with a playwright who I want to do his plays at my theater. So that's part of why I am always quick to remind everybody that I'm not very qualified. I can just speak to how some people feel about stuff. I recommend, obviously, the FY Pod channel from the Bulwark. Specifically, if you are under the age of 30, please subscribe. You can put us on mute. I don't give a shit. Train the algorithm. But the other thing I recommend is a book called The Devil's Chessboard. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's about the Dulles brothers. And the Dulles brothers are one of the darkest chapters in American history. Allen Dulles was the first civilian director of the CIA. He was a Nazi collaborator. He was the guy who basically tricked Kennedy into doing the Bay of Pigs disaster. And then Kennedy got rid of him, and Dulles basically came out and was like, hey, I didn't trick Kennedy into doing Bay of Pigs. And then basically just explained in more complicated words that he tricked Kennedy into doing Bay of Pigs. But Dulles used to be able to order people to their death. Dulles was able, in specific orders, to get people killed. And when you learn about the Dulles brothers' dark influence on America, you really gain a new perspective on what people with political power in this country are capable of doing. Stuff that you really only think happens overseas. But no, what happens here, they're just really clean about it. And the Dulles brothers have escaped, at least for now, have escaped their historic comeuppance, so much so that John Foster Dulles, who was the Secretary of State under Dwight Eisenhower, has a fucking airport named after him in D.C.
Oh, I was wondering why I heard that name so much. Okay, it was flying in and out.
There is a literal Dulles airport in D.C., and these guys did business with the Nazis way after they started really, really, really getting Nazi. So much so that reports have it, and these are just reports, but there's a bunch of them, that when they had to stop doing business with the Nazis for their corporate law firm, John Foster Dulles cried in front of a bunch of people. They tried to hang on to their Nazi collabs, as people on the internet would say, for so long that it actually hurt them. And then you learn about people like, what's his name? There was a lawyer who was fighting Wall Street who almost became FDR's pick for his fourth VP. And when FDR said that he was going to maybe pick this guy for VP, he was actually threatened with a military coup. I hate to be that type of like Google it person, but there's just a lot of shit that happens here that will make people trust the United States government even more. And I don't want to be someone who feeds into conspiracy theories. I mean, there was literally a popular conspiracy theory that the shooting at my high school did not happen. And I was like, not only did it happen, there's videos of it online. So I'm not coming here as the representative of conspiracy theories, but as somebody who likes to speak to how people feel, I can't blame anyone for thinking that the US government is behind crazy shit. Like, historically, we do really crazy shit.
Sure. I'm not going to deny that.
William O. Douglas.
Yeah.
William O. Douglas.
Gotcha. Okay.
And
I will say.
He actually swore. Real quick. When my grandfather was on his deathbed, and he was dying of cancer, withering away, I left my job to go spend a bunch of time in Parkland so I could be with him in his final days, and I'm really glad I did it. And it was while I was reading the Devil's Chessboard. I was reading about William O. Douglas, who was just such a fucking Chad when it came to fucking memeing on Wall Street. And I was telling my grandpa about it. This poor man couldn't physically move himself out of bed and was just stuck listening to his grandson talk about the Cold War for hours. And I was like, man, this is a dark way to go. But I was telling him about how epic William O. Douglas was. And my grandfather said, he swore me into the bar.
Aww.
And I was like, no fucking shit. And it turns out he does. He was a Supreme Court judge. And then my grandfather went on to do an adoption for Chief Justice John Roberts. And I'm like, wow, I am personally so not susceptible. I am such a perfect target for conspiracy theories because I'm a school shooting survivor who came out of the school shooting espousing liberal talking points. And my grandfather did an adoption, which is moving a baby from one place to another. Also, we're Jewish, for the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Like, I am a poster boy for the type of shit that gets 4chan cooking.
Damn. I mean, even Andrew Tate had apparently a dad, I guess, who worked with the CIA or some shit, right? So maybe at the end of the day, really, it's just the deep state controlling everything.
Have you ever talked to Andrew Tate?
Once or twice, but he avoids me for good reason, so.
He's really something. It's crazy that someone has been able to become like so many young men's alpha Chad while he's so fucking ugly. Like, there are much cuter guys who are saying the red pill shit that you want to hear, but this dude looks like he looks like the tip of a pinky and then the bottom half of a thumb. It's really weird.
Well, listen, that's good. It shows young men everywhere that you can be an alpha Giga Chad too, even if you don't look like a actual Giga Chad, you know?
Yeah, and that's one thing, I'm running out of time. That's one thing I say to a lot of the young men I know who are starting to get pissed about why women don't want to sleep with them. I'm like, the dudes I know who pull the hardest are not the best looking dudes. They're the dudes who are the most true to themselves. I think people say confident a lot when it comes to impressing women. I'm iffy on confident because I think sometimes confident makes people cocky and or kind of aggressive because we've been conditioned to think that to be confident in yourself, you have to impose yourself upon others. But I'm like, the guys I know who like drive women the craziest are like regular looking dudes. Some of them are kind of ugly. They just know who they are and are comfortable in their own skin. And it's like, I know nerds and geeks who make the hottest girls go crazy because they're just being honest to themselves. There's no better way to look like a fucking loser dork than to try to look cooler than you are. The same way that there's no way to look gayer than to try to act straighter than you are.
Sure. Although I will say that advice to be true to yourself usually only works with people who already have a very good foundational personality anyway. And if you are a fucking loser or an asshole, whatever, being true to yourself is probably not going to help much. But
it's the key to making that foundation for a personality. Is like I will always say that I was one step in the wrong direction away from becoming a red pill like demon. Like if I was just a little bit, if a few things went wrong, the amount of butterflies you have to step on to make me little Ben Shapiro, there's not a lot of them. I flirted with the right even after the shooting at my high school because they were preying on grievances that I didn't understand, the things that I was stressed about, and I didn't know why they were really happening. And I think the thing that prevented me from getting red pilled was the fact that I did theater in high school. And that sounds like a silly thing to say, but what theater does is it makes you cohabitate with women in a way that, you know, teaches you not to other them. It teaches you to see women as other human beings, not as this mysterious other fucking magical race of people who make no sense. Because at the end of the day, yes, boys and girls are different. Yes, people who do not conform to the gender spectrum are also different in their own way. But when all's said and done in theater, y'all are part of the same fucking team. If you're in a musical with somebody else, boy, girl, black, white, at the end of the day, you better make this fucking show good or you look like an asshole. So I think being on a team with women all the time put me in this position where I just couldn't take that final step towards becoming a red pill guy because I just couldn't look past how much they were villainizing women. And I think one of the main pieces of advice I give to young men who are trying to figure out how to get women interested in them, you know, no matter how they look, etc., is like, if you can't be friends with a woman, you don't deserve to date one. Like,
jeez.
Make female friends that help you understand that women are people. And then you'll be ready to interact with them in a way that can make them interested in you. But like, if you're not like treating women in your life with respect, and I know that that's something that people say a lot, but if you really look into it, if you're not looking at women as something more than people for you to just fuck, you're not going to respect them and you're not going to be able to interact with them. So to all of you who are wondering how not to get red pilled, go join a fucking musical.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the biggest things that sucks is when people say like, oh, like I don't know how to talk to women or I don't know how to do the dating thing. Like the best thing is like, well, you should make a lot of women friends when you're in grade school and high school because that's the easiest time to get a lot of practice on that. But once you leave that environment, it becomes a lot harder, especially if you're in a super gender segregated field of work. Like if you work in software or tech or some bullshit, your office space is probably going to be, actually, even your college classes are going to be like 90-10 men to women. And it gets really hard at that point for a lot of people that didn't get that experience when they were younger. So yeah.
And that's why I think the right thrives so much on isolation. And that's why I think that COVID was really big for turning young men to the right, is that it turns out you think differently about diversity when you're
exposed
hanging out with diverse people. Yeah. And you think differently about women when you see them be human beings who don't feel like something mysterious. So I think that culturally and literally, the right tries to drive us apart because that's how they build a fucking voter farm. I have to go get dressed, but thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah, thanks a lot for chatting. I appreciate it.
And good luck on your, I guess, not tower defense game.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate the chat.
See you later,
wait,
man.
FY Pod, you said? FY Pod?
FY Pod, everybody. I tried to change the title, I promise.
Gotcha, cool.
See you later, man.
I appreciate the talk. Bye. Wow. I think that guy was a bit to the left of me and off on like obviously for some conspiracy stuff compared to where I would be normally, but I'm not here to fight on every single fucking point. Okay, everybody in chat's like debate him on this. Seemed like a nice guy. Let me grab a Red Bull. Hold on one sec.